What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another video. I hope everybody's doing well, and yeah, let's dive straight into things. We're going to be doing a weekly review as per usual, and you'll see that I have the economic calendar lined up right here on the right side. So you can see that we have quite a lot of high impact news this week, especially on the Thursday with PPI on the dollar, and then we've got inflation rates on Tuesdays, and then Friday we've also got high impact news. So we've got high impact news 3 days of the week: Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. So I'm expecting a lot of volatility. The fact that we have all of this news on dollar on the Thursday is suggesting to me that we can probably expect some kind of large reversal of some form. So we'll dive straight into things in terms of where I want to see the week trade. Let's just jump to the monthly real quick, see where we are at. And you can see how we start the month of May, and then we have this massive down delivery from April. So if we're expecting continued downwards price action, as we're moving into the middle of May, I'd anticipate price to still be rallying to some extent. So what does that mean? Moving into the weekly, I'm happy to see us with an up close candle, which means that I'd want to see some kind of low get created, and then us trade higher, filling in this large range that we have. So we have a fair value gap right here, and I will start drawing things. Let me just get rid of this. But overall, I am looking for an up close candle basically, but mainly, whether it's up close or down close, my main priority is seeing this gap get filled, and I'll show you what I'm talking about now. So between this low and this high, I'm looking to see us trade up into there. But then as we drop down to the lower time frame, so the daily, you'll see that there's even more of a gap up here and a bearish order block. So it'll be nice to see if we can see price trade on up into that. But first, let's start on the weekly, and I want to mark out a few things. So we have this bullish order block right here. I'm going to mark out just the upper wick of it, because I believe this should be sensitive to price, helping it act as like a springboard for price basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this blue. Actually, we'll make it this color, and this is a bullish order block open and the bullish order block high from the weekly as well, so it should be very sensitive to price. So weekly bullish order block high / open. And then another reason I do believe that this range will be sensitive to price is also this wick that we have right here. If we look at the midpoint of that, more specifically, consequent encroachment, I'd like to think that this will be able to support prices. And if we do find price tapping into this range, I'd want to see reversals at this point more specifically. And we'll look more into this later this week, so do turn on post notifications. But my point is that I'd want to see the low of this week assuming we are going to close higher, I'd want to see the low get created below here and then trade higher. Now, don't get me wrong, Monday can tell a lot. So we might find that Monday we're rallying off the bat, and it might be that we fill this fair value gap. If we find that price is rushing to fill this fair value gap, and we're filling this fair value gap quickly, so by Tuesday or even Wednesday we've filled pretty much most of the premium, then and only then would I expect us to then start targeting more discount PDRAs, and I'd be looking at these longer wicks as potential targets. But for now, from what I'm seeing, I'd like to think that price will be able to come down, create some kind of classic low, and then swing its way around. But again, Monday's much more telling of that. But overall, I'm looking for this week. I want to see this fair value gap get filled at very least, and then after that it'd be this midpoint of this long wick as a more premium target for price. So let's get that delineated like so, and then we can put consequent encroachment of weekly wick. So now that we have a few things from the weekly time frame on our charts, we now have a range that we want to work ourselves within. As in, this will be the highest I'd expect price to be trading this week. This will be the lowest. Now, obviously, again, we don't know which one it's going to run for first, but we have at least we have a draw on both sides that can help us we can use to outframe our trades. So if we go to the daily, you can see our price already traded down into this range quite recently, and we do have a breaker which is tapped into, which is even more reason as to why I'm anticipating price will continue to trade on higher. So we've got a low, a high, a low, and then eventually last week price traded through this high quite aggressively, closing above it, and then price came and tapped it here on the Friday. So moving into tomorrow, again, I'm happy for us to consolidate a little bit first, but I would like to see more expansion to the upside with, again, that consequent encroachment up here from the weekly getting traded to, which also happens to line up with a bullish daily, a bearish daily order block. So we're seeing layered PDRAs here. We have a consequent encroachment of a weekly wick lined up with a bearish order block on the daily, and then we have a breaker which has already been traded to, but we may want to trade to it again, which is lined up with our a breaker which is also lined up with our weekly bullish order block high. So I hope that all makes sense. It's quite complex, but my point is we're starting to see them layer as we drop down to the lower time frames. So let's go to the 4 hour. You can see we've already gapped open. Obviously, we still have the Asia session and all of tomorrow's trade. So again, I tend to let Mondays trade themselves and then look for setups. But again, this will be the lowest I'd want to see price trade for me to remain bullish, with the expectation to be using this as a target. And then on this time frame, you can see I'm also looking at this fair value gap up here as a nice premium PD array for price to want to try and trade into. So although I've marked out this to get filled from the weekly, I do believe we'll be able to bypass that quite quickly. And once we're above it, I'd like to think it can use it as support. So once price does manage to trade through it, if it does, then I'd expect it to use it as support, the midpoint specifically, and then be able to trade on higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hollow out the inside of this, if I can get my words out. Just like that. And the reason for that is because I'm happy for price to trade through it, and then I'd want to see how it treats it once it's trading through it. You can see some relative equal highs up here as well for buy side liquidity. So I'm looking for price to be able to draw up into that. But again, I'm looking for this level to act as support, and then we have a nice bullish order block here. But again, we haven't even reached Monday yet, so let's let Monday trade, but at least we have a draw on a premium PD array. So that's going to be everything on dollar for now. I hope that all makes sense, but it's looking quite nice in terms of delivery. And like I said, if we find ourselves up here by say Wednesday or Thursday on the back of all this high impact news that we have coming, as in PPI and everything over here, if we're up here and we get to PPI, I wouldn't be surprised if it reversed off the back of it. Or if we're not there yet and price has just been consolidating all day, so let's say we're consolidating around here and then we have PPI hit. If that happens, then I'd expect, let's not give anyone some free advertising. Then I'd expect price to run for it. So it's all dependent, but Monday will definitely help us much more. So let's go to GBP USD, and we will start here on the weekly as well. And obviously, if we're expecting a potential up close on dollar, now it doesn't have to close up, but we want to see price trade higher on dollar to an extent. Then obviously we want to see if pound can dip a little bit lower, and you can see that we do have a fair value gap between this high and this low. So there's a nice little bit of imbalance in the discount right here for price to draw down in towards. And then you can see these wicks, 3 wicks right here. So I'm looking at the 50% level of these wicks. When we have really long wicks like these, I tend to look at the 50% level because that should act as a barrier for price, because wicks are gaps too. So if we mark out the 50% level, this will be the highest I want to see. For me to remain bearish into here, this will be the highest I want to see price trade. This doesn't mean that price can't go above it. If it does, that's fine, and then I'd expect these highs to get ran. But until this is traded to, I'd want to see this get respected. And then obviously if it was to get violated, that would tell us instantly that we're on the wrong side, and then we adjust accordingly. But nonetheless, this is a weekly wick, so let's get that delineated. Like so. And then this is a weekly low as well, but as we drop down to the daily, that should become more significant. So here you can see that pound's in a little bit of a mess, a little bit more consolidated, not the cleanest of price action, but this weekly wick still remains relevant in that this will be the highest I want to see price trade for me to want to see price trade lower. Now, again, prices even need to get up here to come down here. This is just a limit. So if I was to be going short, this would be the very highest. I don't want to put my stop loss, but at the same time, you know, at that point, I'll be wanting to see pound obviously ideally drop at least double that. What do I mean by that? Well, if I was to go short now and I put my stop loss there, then I'd be expecting pound to at least trade to the bottom of this fair value gap, if that makes sense, for it to be worth a trade. And then also we have relative equal lows. So this is a significant swing low. Why? Because it's taken out this daily low very clearly, and then price has left it since. And then we have this low that came very close to it but didn't quite take it out. So I believe this is what we call engineered liquidity. Again, we can talk more on this next week, in the new week. And then we have a fair value gap within the fair value gap. So when we have layered fair value gaps like this, so this is a daily fair value gap within a weekly fair value gap, it makes it very high probability because it's a clear imbalance in price. Let's go to the 4 hour. And again, it's very messy, so I don't want to speak too much, especially when the price action is this messy. This is not clean at all. But I'm seeing a lot of wicks, and I'll show you what I mean. I'll just highlight them. So rejection block levels here, and then even over here as well. You see these wicks, how we're tapping into this wick range, rejection. We're constantly seeing this kind of similar behavior around these wicks, so that's why I anticipate that if price does manage to rally up there again, I'd expect the same kind of behavior. So that's just something to be aware of, that once it's in these ranges, I don't want to see it spend much time there. If it does spend time there, then we're probably on the wrong side and we just readjust. It's as simple as that. But my point is, this should be very sensitive to where, because every time price tapped into here, sell off, sell off, sell off, sell off, sell off, and then it's created this high, which might be engineered, assuming we are going to trade lower. And then again, these relative equal lows are looking awfully juicy. But again, the high impact news that we have next week is going to help us frame that, because we have quite high impact news on pound as well, so that should help us. We will drop to the 1 hour, but I'll talk more on this in tomorrow's video about what I want to see from the 1 hour, where you can see, again, so much back and forth price action. I don't think, a decent or significant setup will probably form until maybe like Tuesday. But I'm happy to see us rally basically into this range. And then after that, I'm looking to see some kind of reversal to pull back and start running for the sell stops and this fair value gap in the discount. So that's how I'm looking at pound. But at the same time, one thing to take note of as well is that we are very much range bound. So we have there's clear buy side liquidity above the market and below the market. And when you can identify it this cleanly, like we're in a clear consolidation, it's very easy to get drawn to one bias, and we just need to remember that. But what we can do is look at the current trading range, so this low to this high, and see where the 50% level is, and that could just help us a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. So you see how this 50% level again is lined up with where I marked out this sensitive price range. If price starts tapping above that, I don't want to see it spend much time. If it does, it'll probably push through it very aggressively and it'll start running. But ideally, if it's going to tap into there again, I want it to find like instant rejection, really struggle, and then just fold over and roll over into the sell stops ideally. But it's very interesting to see how in this range, how price treats the 25% levels. Look at how we tap into that 50% level. We run it one more time, 25% level. It's not sensible, but these levels are significant and can be used to our advantage. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'm going to leave that as so. Let's now finish up on Euro USD. And we're going to start here on the weekly as well. Now Euro has ransom stops above here. So buy side liquidity has been grabbed. It's accumulated buy stops because we have relative equal highs here, relative equal highs here, and we assume that retail has their stops resting above these highs. So that means we're selling to those stops, which means we should see some kind of sell-off, which is in line with our bias of wanting to see higher dollar and potentially see euro push on lower. So that's just something to take into account. And if we want to see a down close week, then again, I'm looking at the same as what I was seeing on dollar, just inverted. So I like the look of this wick. Why? Because it's long. There's a clear large displacement to the upside. So there's a lot of downside delivery, which hasn't happened here. We ran out buy stops above buy side liquidity. We have a breaker, high, low, higher, high. So we can look at this range, which should act as a nice reference point. And then this would be a nice target because it's consequent encroachment. And like I said, once we drop down to the lower time frames, we should be able to see a lot of imbalance that needs to get filled. So let's just get that marked out as weekly consequent encroachment. And then we'll go to the daily. And again, it's not as clean. Now, luckily, it's a bit more clean than pound, which I like. This kind of displacement. You see how we closed below these lows? The fact that we closed below these lows makes me look at these three up close candles, these bearish order blocks, act as a more significant point, as in if price is bearish, we should see that kind of behavior pretty much instantly. It's like we receive instant feedback. I like to think of it. It's like let's say you do an exam, you'd rather get the feedback straight away than wait like a few months for the results, right? So that you can improve. Same thing here. So if we're bearish, we want to see confirmation, not confirmation, but we'd like to know quicker. So if we are bearish, price if it's going to tap into there, it won't spend long there. It'll turn around. We'll probably get more wicks, and then we'll see price continue to run over and run to where? Bullish order block on the daily, which also happens to be the weekly consequent encroachment on the weekly. So there's reason for price to come down here. Now don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that price can't just roll over and fold on, but we'll know instantly, as what I'm saying is that this range, remember this is a breaker range, which is, there's the breaker, high, low, higher high. It's pretty much highlighted already. So if we just mark out the 50% level of this should not get violated. And as soon as it does, so if price starts trading through it, then and only then would I say, okay, I want to see it act bullishly. Once we see evidence of that, we can start thinking about potential longs, thinking about these highs. But that's not the point. We want to stick to the side. We've seen clear displacement here, and I'll show you the break in market structure. Break in market structure here. Let's make it a bit. Break in market structure here. Break in market structure here. So we're seeing constant breaks of sell stops here, here, and here. So there's no reason for us to be thinking of bullishly right now. And we have a clear imbalance down here to fill. And again, this is where the news, let me just bring the news up one more time, because this is where time becomes important. Bear with me. So if we're trading around up here, and it gets to Thursday, I'd want to see a reversal off the back of that. But if we're already trading down here and we haven't even reached Thursday yet, then we'll probably find ourselves coming back in on ourselves, either to some kind of internal liquidity, or it's just going to run and start running out highs. And that's what I mean. This is why it's best to let Monday trade and just to be patient with it. But this is where time becomes important, and why it's not easy just to say, oh, it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way, because apologies for that, my computer completely just shut off. But my point was, this is where time becomes important, because based off when the high impact news is, and based on where we are in the charts, and if we're around the PD rates which we've delineated here, it's easier for us to look for setups. But that's going to be everything, guys. I want to get rid of this video just before it shuts off again. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, smash subscribe. Make sure to turn on post notifications. Should be able to post every day this week except for Wednesday, but do stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.